So today's video is going to be a bit different than the standard content. Also, I am unable to play music because of extremely rigid copyright protocols on YouTube, where just 3 seconds of audio could result in the entire video being flagged or even taken down. However, music is integral to this trailer, so much so in fact that I would take a moment and say that anyone who has not watched the Death Stranding official trailer from start to finish needs to pause this video and go do so. If you have not, some of my commentary will likely not make a lot of sense. It is linked at the top of the description. Once that's done, this video can resume. Now to really start. I pride myself on holding out against the fabled wave of hype that precludes major releases nowadays, but this is one situation where it is worth setting aside my skepticism and embracing what can only be described as pure artistry. In the background right now is a particular segment of the trailer, and that is very deliberate. Of the 9 or so minutes that fully entail the video, it may seem like a relatively unimportant part, but if you really absorb this scene, it becomes clear that it is indicative of the care and craftsmanship that went into not only this trailer, but the surrounding world of Death Stranding. Again, with the audio playing and the accompanying music, the scene is enhanced tenfold. I just unfortunately can't show it that way. The frame transitions are more complex than simple cuts. Each image communicates depth of emotion and also offers a possible glimpse into the character's morality. Cliff, who is seen throughout the trailer as the likely villain, appears detached, disconnected, and calculated, while other characters such as Sam, played by Norman Reedus of The Walking Dead, are depicted with tears visible on their face. This depth is also not something that is common in the video games industry. Historically, a great deal of games have depicted fully original characters that are not based on real-world likenesses, but more recently, with a rise in motion capture technology, that has begun to change, and with more detailed facial animation comes the ability to portray more complex emotions. A game like Mass Effect Andromeda, for instance, never made you feel anything substantial other than perhaps laughter, but a game like Death Stranding and an actress like Lea Seydoux are perhaps able to elicit a legitimate response. If the trailer were nothing but cinematic motion capture animations, I would have a much different tone right now, but alongside that angle there is also gameplay capture, which has been adjusted to align with the dramatized narration and soundtrack. I won't digress into a specific analysis of the trailer, but for a few broad strokes observations, there are vehicles, separate biomes, and an emphasis on split world exploration with some sort of darker, conflict-ridden plane of existence that players will end up having to navigate or escape. I'm not here to tell you it's going to be the best game ever. It may end up being terrible for that matter, but regardless of how the final product is received, it's important to recognize the nearly limitless creativity that has already been displayed. Let me explain. The soundtrack to this trailer is Path by Apocalyptica. It's an eerie song, which seems to fit quite well with the vibe of the promo, but it goes far deeper than that. The actual music video for Path shows a set of musicians as they play their instruments. Across from them are their own shadows, but their shadows are engaging them with a kind of call and answer. They are effectively battling against something that is a product of themselves, but has a life of its own. In the Death Stranding trailer, there is what appears to be a World War I scene unfolding after the player is torn away from reality into a sort of shadow dimension. Since the game takes place in an apocalyptic future, World War I, even this seemingly distorted version, is a thing of the past, and thus the struggle is taking place against a warped version of humanity, however it has come to unfold, which is a product of our own making. This kind of duality between the music, with its call and answer format, and the game itself creates a level of depth within the trailer that we simply don't see in other titles, especially when it combines with the audio. In the song's music video, by the end of its duration, the roles have reversed, and instead of a call from the musicians and an answer from the shadows, the power dynamic has shifted, and the shadows are now dictating the events. Again, if we compare this to the Death Stranding trailer itself, it shows beautifully artistic parallels. At the start of the trailer, the events unfold in an open and vibrant world, but by the end, after the character has been pulled through the veil, the dynamics have shifted and the dark presence, whatever or whoever it is, has gained control, and now, at least in perception for the viewer, they dictate the events. There are also visuals that circle back. The very first scene is one of an infant looking into the camera, but towards the end, we get an echoed scene with what appears to be a broken, somewhat disturbing child retreating into the dark, which helps to continue the sense of transformation even on a subconscious level. Games that take the time to carefully craft every aspect of their world are often embraced as revolutionary. While watching the Death Stranding trailer, it's hard not to draw comparisons to The Last of Us, at least for me personally. Of course, they are wildly different worlds, but The Last of Us centered around a disease which had infected humans and turned them into aggressive creatures. The disease, however, is a lot closer to reality than many gamers likely expect. The sickness was a mutated version of the real-world fungus called cordyceps. Cordyceps typically affects ants in the rainforest. Also known as the zombie fungus, cordyceps will effectively possess ants and compel them to climb to the highest point possible before infectious spores burst out of the ant's head and spread across the ground below. The Last of Us assumed that cordyceps made the jump from ants to humans with some added side effects, and that level of research and detail is what has earned the game a place in the industry's history as one of the most well-developed stories and worlds of all time in the gaming space. Contrary to games like Days Gone, which, while competent in its own right, was nothing short of mediocre when compared to other competing titles, The Last of Us did not just take a world, make some monsters up, and then call them freakers to try and be different. The artists behind its creation did research and carefully constructed a world from the ground up with a thoughtful and creative approach that contributed to the resounding success of the title. Death Stranding may end up being a game that falls short from a gameplay perspective or from a narrative perspective, who knows. As with many open world games, it could be the case that the travel feels uninteresting or bland. But even if all else fails, it is quite clear that Death Stranding is taking risks. The game seeks to do and be something entirely different, and even when attempts at innovation fail, they should still be recognized for their bravery. In an industry where all too many games follow a tried and true format of predictable subject matter, franchise iterations, and live service formats, to see a holistically unique and creative world be put forward, it builds up confidence that despite surrounding trends, there is still true artistry at play in the industry. The game is a brainchild of Hideo Kojima, best known for the Metal Gear series. He is a writer, director, and designer who takes part in the entire vertical process of game development, and the game also features a cast of talented actors such as Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen, Lea Seydoux, Margaret Qualley, and many more. This combination of real-world talent partnered with a true narrative professional means that even if the game falls short of expectations, it will be a deliberate creation born of exceptional creative vision. There is a lot of confusion right now as to what the story is or will be, why, within the context of the game's lore, the world has evolved in such a way. What is Death Stranding, and why is the world seemingly under siege from another plane? To add in my own speculation here, I would assume that stranding is perhaps a verb. To strand is to cross over, from our plane to whatever is beyond, and the lingering interactions between the present and the past, or whatever that darker reality is, are a product of that process. Now, I have to be clear here, I am not saying that anyone should go out and pre-order this game. I am not trying to hype up the launch day product because in truth nowadays it's impossible to tell how a game will be based off of promotional material. If you were to examine the combat scene in the trailer, it would become clear that there are numerous jump cuts, which might be a design decision to pace the action with the music, or it might be something much less innocuous. The trailer certainly showed what appears to be gameplay, but there are still a lot of unknowns. What I'm trying to say is that there are two angles here. The first is that the game is clearly something new and aims to tell a story unlike any other in existence. It's not a reskin, it's not a lazy trend capitalization, it is something entirely unique. But a brilliantly artistic trailer does not constitute a deserving game by itself. However, in the modern industry, it's worth acknowledging when a game goes above and beyond, even when it is simply a 9-minute trailer. I've personally been craving a truly enrapturing single-player game for a very long time now. I'm fresh off the heels of Rage 2 at the moment, which had the story of a wet potato, if we're being totally honest. And most other games in recent memory have been quite similar, with an emphasis on loot, combat, or PvP elements. Death Stranding could be another title that rises to the challenge of becoming a benchmark in the narrative gaming industry. A Witcher 3, a God of War, a Last of Us, and I truly want it to be exactly that. I cannot say for certain whether it will be, since there is absolutely the possibility of a convoluted and disjointed world that breeds confusion rather than investment, but at the very least, using this trailer, the material contained, and the artistry behind it as a benchmark, Death Stranding is a title to watch very closely. With most games, I catch myself wondering what things are. What will the gear be? What mechanics will be the strongest? Etc., etc. But with Death Stranding, the clear intention is to motivate the player with a sense of why. Why are these things true? Why are characters displayed in such a way? And beyond that, a nearly endless list of further questions. It's not the traditional way that we are used to digesting content. Games often now make grand promises and lofty claims, but Death Stranding has been relatively quiet as it allows for the audience to absorb the mystery, and it's a refreshing method of building excitement. As launch day creeps closer, having been now locked in for November 8th, which was announced at the end of the trailer, I will certainly be expecting more detailed and transparent information, but when a fantasy world is built and portrayed in such a way as to immediately elicit a response, that has become an exceedingly rare thing in the surrounding competitive landscape. It is worth taking the time to discuss and also praise. I wish I could have played segments of the trailer at various intervals with the audio unmuted, but the music is licensed by Warner Chappell, who are some of the worst culprits on the entire platform when it comes to the abuse of YouTube's copyright, and they flag any video that they can manually and automatically, so it is what it is. If you want to support, there are links down below, but I guess that's enough for today. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.